Hey guys, it's Phil from PR Moves back again for another video. This time, we're going over our Bears versus Browns Week 3 predictions. The Bears, of course, entering this game 1-1 after defeating the Cincinnati Bengals in a close, but not as close as it seems, 20-17, where we were up 20-3 with 4 minutes left in the game. And then the Browns coming off a 31-21 defeat of the Texans, who lost Tyrod Taylor through that game. So we're going to talk about how the Bears can beat the Browns, how the Browns stack up against the Bears defensively and offensively. But really quick, before we jump into that, I want to talk about why my weekly predictions didn't come out for this week. I had testing this week for school. I did make it clear that my school is going to come before my videos, so I took care of my schoolwork before that video came out. My week 4 prediction video will go over what my week 3 predictions were. I believe I posted them on Twitter if you're that curious. And if I didn't, then I will after this video at some point before tomorrow's game start. But we're going to jump into it. So starting off with the Browns receivers versus the Chicago Bears secondary. The Browns are getting a much-needed piece of their receiving core back. OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., returns to the field this week. Flanking him on the opposite end is Donovan Peoples-Jones, their 4th or 5th round draft pick out of Michigan from last year. And then Rashard Hollywood Higgins, as well as watch out for Anthony Schwartz, their rookie receiver who has run 4 sub-3 speed. Talented wide receiver core, even without Jarvis Landry. And then at tight end, they're 3 deep at tight end. They have Austin Hooper, David Njoku, and I believe Harrison Bryant is their 3rd tight end, rookie from Toledo last year. And then at running back, we all know their running backs. I think this is going to be one of the only teams where I include both of their running backs, and that's Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, best running back duo in the league. Always tough going up against Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, especially with how good their offensive line is. And our secondary is going to be the same from last year, except I did not include Deshaun Gibson in this video. It is possible he still plays. He's listed as doubtful, but any players who were listed as doubtful, I did not include in this video. Or I haven't included in the series so far. So Deion Bush will be in the strong safety spot. DeAndre Houston-Carson might also get some action, but Deion Bush is the likely starter. He will get his first start since week 17. Or the wild card game of 2018-19. So good for Deion Bush. I hope he plays well, but it doesn't bode well because I do think Gibson is a better player than Deion Bush just in general. And then we jump over to the Bears receivers versus the Browns secondary. Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, Marquise Goodwin, Cole Kmet, David Montgomery, the same 5 that we've had throughout this series. Just reminding you, Damiere Byrd gets a lot of action in this Bears offense, and Jimmy Graham and Jesse James will also get a lot of action, especially knowing how much Justin Fields likes throwing to his tight ends. David Montgomery hoping to have a really nice performance. The Texans were able to run the ball really well against the Browns last week, so I'm hoping for a nice performance from David Montgomery. But Denzel Ward, Gregory Newsome II, Troy Hill. Troy Hill always picks off the Bears whenever we play Troy Hill. Greg Newsome is playing opposite of Denzel Ward instead of Greedy Williams. He's played pretty well so far, but I would say I'd much rather target Greg Newsome than Denzel Ward. John Johnson, Ronnie Harrison, and don't forget Grant Delpit in this secondary as well. The Browns have one of the most underrated secondaries in the league. I really don't think their weakness is in the secondary. Love Denzel Ward, love John Johnson, love Ronnie Harrison, love Greg Newsome, love Troy Hill. They're all good. It's going to be so hard to throw the ball against these guys. And really, I think that makes this game. I think this is probably low-key the most difficult position group matchup for the Bears. Especially with how bad Nagy's play calling can be at times. But that's going to move us on to the Bears' offensive line, the other big key to this offense to help Justin Fields. The offensive line returns exactly as last week. Jason Peters, Cody Whitehair, Sam Mustipher, James Daniels, Jermaine Ifedi. But we're going against a very talented front seven. Starting off, Myles Garrett, He was my pick for Defensive Player of the Year this year. I don't think he's really had an outstanding year so far, but he's always so good. And then defensive tackle, Malik McDowell, Malik Jackson, they're not the best. Malik Jackson is kind of old. Malik McDowell is kind of young. So, going to be interesting to see how the Bears can attack there. They do often move Clowney, who is listed as their left end, inside the defensive tackle, and they'll place an edge rusher like Mac Wilson on the opposing edge from Myles Garrett, so never be opposed to that. But Shion Takitaki, who is listed as their other offensive tackle, is listed as out for this game, so it's likely we see a lot of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah throughout this game, which should be very exciting. And then Malcolm Smith rounds out the linebackers for the Cleveland Browns. And overall, I think our offensive line, if they play as well as they have the previous, especially the tackles, if the interior can play better, considering this, I do think the Bengals have a better interior pass rush. If our interior of the offensive line can play better and our tackles play as well as they have the first 2 weeks, then I'm very confident that the Bears can at least keep up and keep Justin Fields on his feet for a majority of the game. Sorry for the weird cut there, but we got to jump over to the Bears front seven versus the Bears offensive line, or the Browns offensive line. Browns have two of their players currently questionable, both J.C. Tretter and Jedrick Wills Jr., their pick from the 2020 first round, are both listed as questionable. But if they both play, which I assume that they will, the Browns have one of the best offensive lines in the entire league. It's going to be very hard for our front seven to get some work on them, but I do think our front seven's up to the task. No Eddie Goldman for this week. I made sure to wait until the Saturday injury report was out to make sure Eddie Goldman wasn't playing. That's going to suck considering how good the Browns are at running the football. But Akeem Hicks returns. Chris Tonga, who's been super underrated to start the year, comes back at defensive tackle, and I made sure to list Mario Edwards, who is returning from his suspension, is returning back to the team. Bilal Nichols plays at that left end spot. Of course, we have Quinn and Mack coming off the outside, and Roquan and Ogletree will be keeping up their spot in the middle. Sean Desai played excellent called excellent play calling, great stunts. He lined up Quinn and Mack on the same side. He lined up Hicks on the outside and Mack on the inside and ran really nice stunts. So watch for some really creative play calling to try to get to Baker, who's nursing an injury, so that the Browns are going to have to be forced to play a little bit more uncomfortable in this game. Hopefully Sean Desai can cook something up, but this Bears front seven has a really tough task against the Browns offensive line, which I think could be the best in the league. And then we got the final prediction. I do have Mayfield throwing 240 yards and a touchdown. I think they're going to want to run the ball with Mayfield's injury. So I have Chubb going for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't have it on here, but I assume Hunt also gets around 70 yards and 2 touches. I just think they run on different formations a lot of the time. Beckham I have around getting 40 yards, and I have Garrett getting a sack and Denzel Ward nabbing an interception against Justin Fields. I do have Fields throwing for 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the interception to Denzel Ward. I also have him running for 60 yards on his own, and then David Montgomery running for 70 yards, Mooney catching a few passes for 60 yards and one of Justin Fields' touchdowns, and then Robert Quinn nabbing a sack. But I do have the Cleveland Browns winning 30-20. I think they are better at us at nearly every single position. I think we're a good matchup in some aspects, but I think our secondary and our inability to get to Baker, even with his injury, is going to give the Browns such a big advantage. Tomorrow, my reaction to the game will be out around 4 or 5 Eastern. And then, yeah, we are going to try to have some fun with this game. So hopefully the Bears win, but I do have the Browns winning just to keep my prediction streak up. And that's what we're going to roll with. Peace out. Bear down.